So, just see a show of hands. I know a lot of you. Who currently is using Media Composer? All right. Now, don't be ashamed. Who has never seen, who has never used Media Composer before? Wow. Oh, I saw one. So anyway, the reason why I'm asking is thank you all who have been using Media Composer. Media Composer just celebrated its 30th anniversary. The first Media Composer was Avid 1 in 1989. And after years of development and years of working with you all, we've been able to develop new versions of Media Composer. And this one's kind of amazing the way it works, because we wanted to be able to balance what current editors do, how you're working. You don't want to, change any of that, so don't be afraid. Yes, it may look a little different, but there are, the way that you're working is still there. The way that you customize, the way that you look at your bins. But we also wanted to bring in the new editors, people who have never seen Media Composer before, just to try to make it a little more intuitive, a little more refreshed. So we'll go ahead and get into it. To start out, just navigating or looking around the UI, you may think, well, it looks the same. I still have my tools there, I still have the timeline, I have my bin, I have the source record window, but along the right side, we have workspaces. So this is easy access to edit, to color, clicking, and I'm just going into the different workspaces. So the idea is, just like other applications out there, if you're a new Media Composer editor, if you want to know how to get into color, you don't have to go and sift through a bunch of windows or go into a certain mode. You can just go to color and select it. Now, for the seasoned Media Composer editor, that might take up some real estate on that side of your UI. Currently just on a single display. You can work on a dual monitor system. So you can have your bin monitor and your edit monitor as you work for years. But you can go in, and if I right click in the workspaces here, I can simply say hide. It actually hides that, so I now have more real estate on the side there. And now I have a pull-down menu on the upper right where I can go in and choose my workspaces, or show the workspaces, depending on how I want it. This is great. I should have just passed the bucket around. Yeah. Everyone's like ducking. It's okay.
I'll be the last one.
That's all right. Workspaces are nice. Now, what I do want to tell you, and don't be afraid, the project window is gone. Ooh, why? Well, the project window, mainly when you go in and set up your project, the only thing you're doing is maybe changing format or looking at your bins, right? But what I want to point out is your bin over here is now a bin container. And the container contains your bins. So what you'll see is that's actually a sidebar that you can close or open depending on what you want to have displayed in your bin. So the bin container is right there, and by the way, all of your panels are locked. So all of your views for your bin, your source, your timeline is now a locked paneled UI, because editors said we don't like having bins and windows on top of one another. You go in and you move things around just to try to get it out of the way, but now with the locked panel UI, you don't have that little window on your Mac that you accidentally click on in your Finder, right? But if you do want to have floating windows, you can. So I can take this bin right here and pull it out, and that can float. So if you do want bins and windows and tools actually floating, you can do that. But if you don't, you want to actually drop that in, we can actually put that back. Every time I double click on a bin, it brings it up as a tabbed element in my bin. Okay? Nice and easy. I do also want to point out that the icon for a bin has changed. There's our open bin, there's our closed bin. Why did it change? A lot of new editors don't know that it was 2 strips of film hanging above a bin, a film bin. Those new editors. So we actually made it more so you can see that it is an open bin or a closed bin. So yes, that was changed. Now looking at the bin container, again you have the little sidebar. The bin container can be pulled out as well. So any tool can be pulled out, and since my layout is across the whole display, the source record actually fills that layout. Because if I have a bin monitor and an edit monitor, my bin container can take up the entire view of my bin monitor. Okay? So right now I'm on one display. If I do connect a second display under Windows, there's host panels, a second monitor would come up. I simply check mark it, and then my canvas goes across two monitors that I can then lock my panels to. So here's my bin container. My bin container contains my bins. My bins are tabbed. But I can now take a tabbed bin and pull it out. And notice when I pull, I get these little green bars on the top, bottom, left, and right. Those are your drop zones. So I can take this bin and drop it on the bottom here. So now I have a split between two bins. I can take another bin, and I want that to be to the left of this bin. So I now have a bin here. I can take this bin, and I want that to be in between both of these. So I have multiple bins open in a really slick kind of way if I want to create my bins this way. And they're not on top of one another. But I could pull them out if I do want. So you can actually decide to do it that way. Let's go ahead and take clips. We're going to drop that back up here. I'm going to close these. And I'm going to take my bin container and I want to drop it back into my layout. So I take my title, that bin window, and notice my green drop zones are now all across my layout. And I can drop that back in and lock it. All right. So views in your bin. The bin right now is right here. We do have text, frame, and script view, all the same that you had before. Now I have a slider to change the size of my frame. Because new editors, how do you change the frame size? Well, Command L, Command K. Okay, I'll learn that. But now somebody coming in new knows that a little slider here, just like photos, documents, and stuff like that, can be changed here. No, we didn't change everything just for the new editor. It's all right. So now, if we go in and take a look at our different displays here, if I make the bin smaller, watch what happens to my selection tools here. They actually compress into a single pull down. So now, if you want to change your view, you don't have to open it back up, select it, and then close it again. And little things like that, which is interesting. Now, a cool feature here, besides seeing your view, my bin is actually larger than my viewing area. But if I right-click in the bin and turn on Show Bin Map, I get a little landscape view of my entire bin. And the white area, that little outline, is what's actually viewable. But I can actually use this to pan around and take a look at that. All right? So you now can see, wait, there's a clip in the lower left-hand corner. I can go down, click, and it takes me to that point, so I can see it. So again, a little representation, a little kind of fun thing there. Maybe you'll use it, maybe you won't, but it is there, just something new. Right-click, hide bin map, and show bin map. All right. So bins, bin container. Interesting thing with bin containers, because you can have multiple bin containers. You can have your scripts in there. So if I have a script that I'm doing script sync or scripting to, if I double click, that can come up in a bin that I can put and split down another side. Or that can be in a completely different bin container with multiple scripts. So you again can designate what you want to have visual in here. But if I go under File, we'll see that there is an option to create a new bin container, which brings up by default a floating bin container that can be, over on another side of my window. That can be shut, so that can look like a normal bin, or that can be open to show the sidebar. And the reason why we added the sidebar to every bin is because now if this bin is over on another monitor, you don't have to go all the way over here to your what was project to open up another bin. You can actually do it from any bin by just opening up the sidebar, which again can be slid, or if you right click, there's hide sidebar or open sidebar. So again, it's just how you want to work. And multiple tools and bin containers. If I take this and drag it, initially I get my little green drop zones, but if I hold down Option, I could actually drop it as a tab to a panel. So that could be an audio panel. That could be Any other tool that you may want to add to that can be dropped in as an extra tab item. All right, looking at the timeline, you may notice something. The Smart Tool is gone. It's not gone, it's hidden. So basically, we've taken the Smart Tool that was mappable before. You can still map it, but by default, it doesn't take up real estate to the left of your timeline. Because editors said, when I go in and select tracks, occasionally I select a tool in the Smart Tool that I didn't want to do. So removing it from the timeline gives you more real estate. The buttons are now mappable. By default, they come up to the top of the timeline. And if I right click, I can choose which Smart Tool I want to have active. And if I hold down a modifier with Option and I click, it actually enables or cycles me through the different options as well. All right, big deal here. The weightlifter's back. I like telling the story. The other night there was somebody at an event I was at. I was doing this presentation, and somebody who had never seen Media Composer before said, "What's with that weightlifter guy?" Well, the weightlifter, if you've used Media Composer for years, had been the lift tool. You click on an edit, you mark it, you hit lift, and guess what? It lifts the edit. People didn't know it went away. It still lifted, the key was still there, the icon went away, it actually was a red arrow that went up. But the weightlifter was, iconic to Media Composer, so we brought it back, people love that. It's almost synonymous, I think I mentioned before, like the shark from Lightworks. Remember that, the shark ate, that's how you trash things. This is our shark. We didn't jump the shark, this is our shark, with the weightlifter. We also added a nice tool for information. So metadata is pretty big when assistants are trying to look at stuff or editors need information on a clip or a sequence. So if I go to Tools, there is an Inspector tool. And the Inspector tool is information. The Inspector tool is also contextual, where if I select a clip, I get metadata for that clip. If I select the source, that's information there. If I select the record, that's information there. So if I take a closer look and I select this clip, you'll see that it gives me time code, it gives me tracks, duration, format. I can change the clip color. I can actually change things here that affect that clip where I'm getting that information. And I can take that Inspector tool and drop it into my layout. So that can be on at all times as I'm moving around and having it follow my selections, which is just some nice information. If I click on a sequence, I get instant information on the duration of the sequence, the tracks that are being used, the format, frame rate. I can even go in and change start time code of that without having to hit a special key to go in and try and go to information to go in and change that. Some other stuff, we did make changes to the UI. We do want editors who are currently using the software, you can open bins, you can open your projects as you had before. If I go to my settings, which by the way, since I don't have a project window, how do I find my settings? I go to settings, it brings up the setting window, where this is where I can go in to change my format. If you haven't seen, you can now do 16K projects.
Are there any?
That's the reaction I always get when I show that.
Are there any?
There are no 16K projects for video and film, but they are for digital signage.
Oh,
So if you are creating digital signage, you can go up to 16K on the system here. It's kind of interesting. But now also your color spaces, we can do ACES. We're fully ACES capable. So if somebody asks if you can take on an ACES capable project, you can. So now you'll see with ACES, we can do ACES 1.1. And that's just letting me choose ACES for high resolution workflows. This is total Cintiq compatible ACES capable workflows. So high resolution, high quality, and we also go up to 32-bit float. So for the techies that need to have something that is higher than just standard HD or for higher formats, up to 32-bit float is now capable inside of Media Composer. And you'll see that there's a new display mode for the timeline, which is full blue. And that is full quality float. So that's 32-bit. So you can work 32-bit float. What I want to point out here also, besides working in ACES, just to show you how that works. In source settings, you all are familiar with frame flex and lookup tables. If you're not, let me know, I can show you some of this. But since I am now set up for ACES, you'll see that I can go in and now choose ACES Panasonic, Sony, generic, Canon, whatever I want to be ACES compliant through the workflow, or adding looks that are ACES supported. All right? But what I want to point out, because there are people who may not know that if you are working on a substandard CPU, not everybody has the highest quality computer or laptop that they're working on, but they're being asked to work in 2K, 4K, or high resolutions. So I'm going to go in and change the format, which again, settings is where I have my format, project, user, and site settings now. If I go under format and I want to not be in ACES, I just want to be in 2K. Actually, we'll go up to maybe 4K. And I'm finding that I'm not able to get good playback on this computer. So what I can do is turn on proxy. The great thing about this is you don't have to create new media. This is going to turn on a proxy mode for editorial where, let's see if this happens. If I go in and go down to 1/16, this should change to be a little softer. So it's just turning the quality down. I can actually work and perform and edit using high resolution in a computer that may not support it. But then I go and switch it back to high res for my output. And the idea is just because people are thinking, I need to create a proxy for everything. I need to work low res. I always bring up Paul Matchless did Fleabag, and he did Fleabag connected 2K AMA linking. I know we don't call it AMA anymore, it's just linking. But he edited everything without a problem. And this was with the first season. So it can be done. Again, if you have the right CPU, if you don't, use proxy mode. Again, it's instantaneous. You're not generating and creating new media.
So you can bring in and keep your media at the highest res, switch to proxy, edit, and then when you're done, flick it back.
That's the idea. I'm not going to say it works for everything because there are some codecs that we do link to, H.264. There are some that are still kind of really hard to work with that it may still stutter. So you may need to go into proxy. You may need to transcode into DNX, whatever.
That's huge. This is a huge.
Yeah, but it's worth a try because it works. I mean, you just turn it on and see if it works. If it plays, I'd say try it. So as soon as I switch that proxy on, everything changes. So that now it's playing back at. So this is, the odd thing is, I'm actually playing at full 32-bit float in proxy mode right now, off of a laptop. Now, mind you, it's one track of video, but again, you decide. I mean, we want to try to make it as easy as possible for you to work with it. A couple other things, I do want to give you some tips and tricks as well, because again, there's a lot of new stuff here that you can work with. By the way, if I do need to deliver an IMF package to somebody who requires IMF, under export, we have now included an IMF selection. So you can actually give a package to some companies that require it. Just an IMF package is just a folder with XML, metadata, and media that is just packaged and ready to go for delivery. If you do require DPX files, maybe you're going to a VFX house and you're working at 4K, DPX exports have been sped up 10 times that they were. So you can actually generate DPX files a lot faster. And also a quick side note, we now support and work, we can read OpenEXR media with the new version, as well as read and support and export MXF OP1A. So OP1A media is a single file where OP-Atom, which is the way Media Composer typically works, if you have a piece of media with audio, it's usually one video and 2 tracks of audio, individual files which play back together to play, where OP1A media is one single file. And quickly, I'll show you this. Under your render options or mixdowns, there's an OP1A MXF mixdown. So new options to create media as well and work with it. A couple things, tips and tricks, again, real important I like to show you because there is stuff in the software that people may not know you can do. And again, I apologize for people who've been seeing this. This is some of my stupid pet tricks. But if I want to go in and choose elements in my sequence that I want to save or create a new sequence from, if I go in and I'm in segment mode and I'm going to choose my yellow and my blue media, I'm just doing a shift select and right click, there are options that say select everything to the left, to the right, same source color. If you color code your clips, you're color coding audio, you're color coding items for turnovers, VFX, animation, clips with the same source clip color. It now has selected all of those. You'll see they turn light gray. I then say create a sequence based on that selection. And what I now have is a sequence which is just what I selected in the exact positions where I had that in my timeline. Plus you can say select media that's offline. If you have an hour-long sequence and you don't know what's offline, say select everything that's offline and create a sequence. Now you have a full list of everything, where it was placed, what's offline, so you know what you need to go get. So some cool tools there. Also another big one, I showed this before. Let me close the project and go into audio ducking. If you haven't seen it, we've had it for years. It's also available in the free version of Media Composer First. And what audio ducking is it lets me take music. Yep. So I'm going to go in and grab some really awful music here. And I'm going to drop that into my timeline. All right. If you didn't know also, we have put in the tools to use the up and down arrow keys to move clips up and down in your timeline. That's been in there for a little while. I see people going, what? If you go to your command palette, you'll see under Edit, move clip up and down. So you can actually move clips, select multiples, move them up and down the timeline. That's been in there for several versions. So what I want to show here is, as I have my music, and let's take some interviews that I have. I'm just going to drop them in my timeline here. Tim Roberts. All right, we'll take Kate Hates. Drop her here. Now, when I'm playing it, of course, we can't hear dialogue. You'll see the timeline buttons here, audio ducking. If I go up here to timeline, there's audio ducking. Or if I right click in my timeline, of course, there's probably 3 to 5 ways to do one thing. Audio ducking. All I do is I choose what are my dialogue tracks, what are my music tracks. I click duck, and it automatically creates my keyframes for me in my timeline automatically, saving you hours of work. So, yes, we may say that earlier. All right, so I mean, a few things. Again, Media Composer 2019.6 will be available June 20th. Some really great tools, but again, wanted to show you some other tips and tricks. You know, thank you all for all you do. We make the software, you guys use it. Thanks for your talent. So I'm going to do the drawing. So if you haven't put your name in here, there's a lot of people. We are going to do a drawing real quick for the amazing new UI bug and a copy of Media Composer.